So if we think about from a technique or training point of view, what we can do to assist the situation, whatever is your preferred riding position, if you can from time to time on a ride make changes away from that position into one or both of the other options for handlebar grip, that will reduce the spot compression on the nerve. And when you think about your preferred position for riding, if you can make subtle adjustments to that, whether it's a slight rotation or a slight angulation difference, that may be enough to keep the tingling at bay. We also know from training load science that if you significantly increase your training stress from your average, going particularly higher in 1 week, then that is going to be a very likely time that you get an injury. As a rule of thumb, we want to make sure that you're not increasing your training stress, your training load by more than about 10% from week to week. And finally, if you are a cyclist that tends to hunch your shoulders forwards like this, that is already pre-stretching the nerves around the back of the neck and the shoulder. So if that's your position, if you think about just bringing the shoulders back a little bit further around the chest wall, that is going to put the nerves into a more middle range and make it easier further downstream. What about from a bike fit point of view? Well, a few simple things we might need to think about there. First of all, the saddle height and the saddle tilt. If your saddle is too high, or if it tends to be a little bit inclined downwards, then you're going to have more pressure on the hands at the front end. So that may mean that you've got to check that the saddle is closer to level, or you may need to drop the saddle in the short term. Equally, if the handlebars are very low, if you're trying to adopt a very aggressive aero riding position, then you may need to just bring the handlebars up, at least in the short term, to take a little bit of pressure away from that front end. Also need to think about the position of the brake levers and the gears. If they are not in an optimal position, then you may be moving your hands and wrists into an awkward shape to get to them safely. So you might want to check on where they are situated. If we think about the equipment that's on the bike, the bar tape, if you have double bar tape, that's going to provide more cushioning. You can use gel strips under the bar tape, again, to provide more cushioning. Or of course, the simplest thing you can do is to make sure that you've got a good pair of cycling gloves that have the appropriate padding in the right place. Here's an example. So this is one of my gloves. You can see here it has a gel pad right where the ulnar nerve would be situated. So that's going to provide good protection for the ulnar nerve there. However, there's a bit of a channel here where the median nerve sits, so this would not likely be such a good choice if I was having median nerve carpal tunnel type problems. But in general, the padding from a glove will go a long way to help. What about other issues that might be contributing? Things that are a little bit more complicated, perhaps beyond the scope of a do-it-yourself sort of fix. We need to think about if there's a problem higher up in your neck that is affecting the nerves further downstream. That'll probably need attention from a health professional. Secondly, you can get peripheral nerve problems that will affect what's happening down at the wrist. And one area that's very typical for that is just here at the back of the elbow is where the ulnar nerve sits. And that's also a position that gets a lot of pressure when you lean on your elbow, typically in front of a desk, when you're a student, when you're studying, when you're working in front of a computer. So if that is your habit and you have ulnar nerve problems, that's one thing you might want to try and change straight away. Finally, just a word about thoracic outlet syndrome. Thoracic outlet syndrome is a problem that affects the nerves and the blood vessels as a bundle as they come down into the arm in this region here between the collarbone, the top rib, and the muscles that run between the rib and the neck. If you have a thoracic outlet problem, you're more likely to find pins and needles and numbness that affects the whole of the hand, and that will require some specific treatment up in that region and affected associated regions there. So I hope that has been useful for you to work out what is contributing to your pins and needles and numbness in your hands, and maybe some ideas as to what you can do to fix it. If you would like any further help, please get in touch with me, Adrian, at my website is podiumphysio.com.au, and until next time, ride well.